All right, so really exciting day here for me. Personally, I think it's the pinnacle of my newly minted podcast, if you will. So I guess the mountain's not real high, but it was always a dream of mine, even from a boy, my boyhood dream, if you will, to interview superstars, megastars in their respective industries. And today, that's going to happen. It took me a long time to really bring this person into the firm just to have an interview. And in my humble office here at Creative Planning, we're going to make that happen today. So, this person we're going to be talking to, of course, about business, about how he built his business, and about how he became one of the largest megastars in the industry. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, meet Jay-Z. There he is. Who were you expecting? Mr. John Zulk, virtual CFO at Creative Planning. So, John Zulk, Jay-Z, welcome, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Certainly, probably disappointed a few people, but let's see if I can pick it back up.
I think that's impossible. I don't think you disappointed anyone. I don't know what else they would have been expecting. So, yeah, Jay-Z, everybody. John Zulk, affectionately known as Jay-Z, and one of the superstar virtual CFOs, or VCFOs, that we have here. We like to say a stable of virtual CFOs here at Creative Planning. So a little bit about the things that we're going to be doing here, and I want to introduce you to really the most sophisticated advisors that we have in this financial world. And today it's going to be talking to John Zulk. It's a little bit different than what you're used to seeing here. So we've got the microphone set up and working on my my podcast abilities, and I'm really going to be channeling my inner Joe Rogan, probably less herbals and psychedelics. But feel free, Jay-Z, if
Yes.
you must.
Noted.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good. So, without the agenda, man, let's just kick this off.
Yeah, sounds great.
I'll kind of go into it. John joined us July,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, and there was a period there where really we had to figure it out. We had to get it right. We want to make sure that we're bringing the advisors to our clients that have a very well-rounded experience. And so, John, take it away. Tell us about what it is that you've done and where you've been.
Well, appreciate that. Yeah. So, cut my first album in, I think it was 1984, and then actually decided I better go to college. So yeah, I guess I started a somewhat of a traditional background, as you would expect from a CFO sitting in a consulting office. Went through the CPA route, did that for 15 years, and kind of knew I was not quite exactly what every CPA is. I had a pretty decent entrepreneurial bent to what I wanted to do. And I have this. Still, I remember the time when I made a decision. John, maybe this CPA world, that you've done all you can in it. I was sitting on a Sunday at home on my kitchen table, and we were auditing an exciting governmental entity. And
man, that is exciting.
For all those that have done that, and so this is the old. You had paper work papers, and my responsibility was to review those work papers. And I had, as you do, you have last year's work papers sitting there, and then you have this year's work papers. And I got them out, and it was the exact same day, just a different year. And I make a pledge that I'm not sitting at this kitchen table a year from now doing the exact same thing. So I had a great opportunity to take that entrepreneurial spirit with one of the clients I was working on, and that was we raised capital through various sources in the Midwest and headed to Brazil to compete with the U.S. agricultural industry, basically hedge against the U.S. agricultural industry.
This
So
is the 90s.
this is 2004 actually.
2004.
So-
that probably makes sense. I guess
So
it
in
dates
Iowa,
me too.
what was happening is, we all know the ethanol industry kind of kicked off at that point in time. And so what were those ethanol plants doing? They were going around to farmers and they were saying, hey, why don't you contribute to this ethanol plant? It's a good way to hedge, protect pricing on your corn. So the same concept was with this project in Brazil, where it was actually, okay, it rains it doesn't rain in the US, maybe it rains in Brazil, and you get that price hedge, and you get to actually compete across the globe. So that was the concept of it, and it went over well. It was easy to raise capital to go down to Brazil, and we took over the frontier ground. Basically, nothing had been grown in this region, not the rainforest. So
I was just gonna
we
say
didn't
that
cut down
at
any
this,
of
you were-
the
you were
foliage.
cutting down the rainforest.
Now, this
Okay,
is
good.
shrubs. This is like something you would hit a 9-iron out of on most Iowa golf courses. It was very sandy soil. So anyhow, that project lasted 8 years. It was a great experience working in Brazil, and through that, gained a lot of professional experience. One being, actually, we were bought out a couple different times by European private equity groups. So the ability to work with them to meet their reporting requirements, all of the international accounting standards that were necessary, all the reporting back to very demanding partners. That was all fun, and I use this line frequently. It's kind of like working in Brazil is like dog years. You take 1 year, it equals about 7 of experience. So that's where you'll notice I have gray hair. That was not the case when I started in Brazil, but it was the case when we were done with that project 8 years later. So that's a long story of how I got from the CPA days, my first CFO role of an international private
Nice.
equity-backed role, and then
Well, I'm gonna cut
Yeah.
you off there, and
Yeah.
I want you to expand on a few things here because,
Mhm.
believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, this is not rehearsed. So I had to grab my notepad to make some
wow,
notes.
yeah, it just got official.
You're talking about a few
Joe,
things.
Joe Rogan does
It
that
really
too.
does. I think he does. Probably nicer pens, but in the traditional CPA world, we're cheap. So, but you had touched on that, a couple of things: entrepreneurial and non-traditional CPA,
Yeah,
right? And that is key here at Creative. You've learned, and I love to talk about how entrepreneurial really everybody is here. And not maybe entrepreneurial from we're going to go start our own business, but there have been a lot of people who have. And there are a lot of people who really maybe wanted to, but that wasn't the niche, didn't have the business, but they love to advise people and business owners on how to build, grow, and then ultimately exit those businesses. A key that I found in a virtual CFO and a successful person in this world is having experience in this world. If you come out of private industry, specific with no experience in the public accounting world, which we've had, people find it very hard to relate. I've had people come and go and say, I just want to work for one business. It's like, well, here you better work for 10 or 12 or 5 or whatever the number is. So, kind of go into that a little bit.
Yeah,
What's it like working for
that's a
multiple
good point.
businesses?
So it's really every business, you have different forms of stress, right? So when you're in the CPA accounting world, obviously there's peaks and valleys of your workload, but you're right. You learn how to be efficient, you learn how to communicate quickly, and you have to be precise in what you're doing, or you don't get to continue on your journey as a CPA or in the consulting world there. So you learn how to do things fast and be able to juggle different topics at once. So that once you don't lose that once you have that, and I think that is a very large trait that VCFOs have and need to have because we're coming into an environment on site and we have to be able to we use this word triage quickly of
It's
what
one of my
is
favorites. Yep.
what is really the core problem. And sometimes what you think the core problem is differently based on, just doing a bit of a more deep dive, that you're not, rather than, treating a symptom, you're treating the cause. And so you gotta find the cause of the problem. So that is why having a background in the CPA consulting world is helpful. But there's also, the best VCFOs have to have really some practical experience on that side of the table, as I say,
I love it.
where you actually have payroll to meet. You actually have all the way from you've cleaned the toilet to you've shipped goods. So you have a wide perspective of the stress you see when you go into a situation where our clients have asked us to come into their world, into their private setting, and say help them. That's sometimes a humbling experience, and so you have to be able to.
Sure it is.
You have to be able to quickly assess and move on. So that's a little of the reason why it's best to be on both sides of those fence at least.
Yeah.
And then you become you're humble in how you ask these questions. Whereas a consultant would come in and say, I've read about it, I know how to do it. Now you can say, I've also read how to do it, and now I can
I've read
actually.
about
that doesn't always work, but
I took a class once where they told me how to do this. I'm an analogy guy.
yeah.
I prefer as many fishing analogies as possible
Perfect.
because I've got a very healthy fishing obsession. But your triage comment really, made me remember one of my favorite ones. And a lot of times, you need to be that emergency room specialist, right? That doctor on call when you're a VCFO. So there's triage. It's stabilize the patient, right? Stop the bleeding. And very many times, that's first things first, and then you kind of get, okay, right? You're working with that business owner, and cash is running out. 3 weeks. What's the problem, right? Well, AR, right? Let's tackle AR, get somebody and start getting money, and then they kind of move on to the ICU, right? So it's 24-hour care. You've got a dedicated person, but the patient is stabilized. You got to do the things to get them into general care and then exiting. So tell me some of the things that you employ in maybe that type of analogy.
Yeah.
Right, AR, hurry up, let's get cash, and then what are some other things that you like to
the first
deploy?
thing when the ambulance arrives at the emergency room door, you don't want to see chaos on the other side of the door, right? You want to see someone that looks like they've seen that blood before, right? So I think that's another trait about the VCFOs that okay, we've medical analogy, we have the scar tissue, that we can add a calmness to that crisis situation. Doesn't mean that it's not a crisis, it's just that you don't get anything really solved by running around.
Well, and you've
like
seen
that.
it before.
Yeah, seen it.